Hi, everyone. It looks like we're live. Great. Let's take a little hi. Welcome. Good. Let's give it just one more minute for people to join in. Hi, there's everybody starting to pile in. Good, good. Hi, sorry, I'm staring at the chat instead of looking at you guys. How are you? Hi, everybody. I have right straight up top of the hour, and you know how I like to start on time. So I would like to welcome all of you. I would like to especially welcome my team leader, my right-hand girl, my lead coach, my queen of everything, the woman who's in charge of me, Leonor Chia.
Hello.
Leonor and I cover the country. Leonor is in Vermont. I am in Southern California. We are geographically about as far apart as two people can be, but in our hearts, we are together. And you guys are geographically about as far apart as anybody can be. We've got people from all over the world. I'd love to see in the chat if you guys could just say hi, let me know that you can see me and hear me and that everything's going good. Let's see, we've got people in the room. Absolutely great. Wonderful. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. I will try and repeat this later, but in case you're having trouble with the streaming video, like if I'm stuttering or if it's not syncing up right, if you run your mouse up, for me it's up on the top of the screen, there's a little thing that looks like a gear. And if you click on that, it says settings, and you can reset it so that I'm at a lower
bandwidth.
What's the word I'm looking for?
Bandwidth.
Lower bandwidth, right. So I won't be in high def, but I'll be more in sync. I'm sure there's a sermon in there somewhere. Great. Hi, everybody. Wonderful to see you all. Martin, great. Hi, Karen, Dina, Deborah, wonderful. Great to see you all. I want to welcome you here, not just because I get so super excited about doing these kinds of events and creating new material and finding new ways to talk about your creativity with you, but also because I'm always so inspired by you all setting aside the time to be here. I mean, I know what my calendar's like. I know your schedule is not any different than mine. And so to take an hour or 90 minutes out of your life and say, this is important to me. My life is important to me. My creativity is important to me. Where I am going in my life is important to me. And I'm going to say no to everything else and say yes to this time right now is such an incredibly powerful statement. So I really want you to honor yourselves for making that statement, for continuing to show up to the question. You know, how to live a happy, fulfilled, creative, juicy, sexy, lovely, wonderful life is a great problem to solve. And the fact that you keep showing up to the question and keep saying, how can I do this? How can I do this better? How can I do this better? I think is really beautiful. So I want to thank you all for that. You're here because you're not getting everything you want. And not like in a fairy tale, like, oh, I want $1 million and to live in a big house on the hill. In my experience, most of you don't actually want that. You know, you'd like to make a living wage. You'd like to be able to, you know, buy the nice cheese at the grocery store and nice presents for the nieces and nephews at Christmas. But it's not so much the money that you're after, or the fame, or the prestige, or the ego stroking. I mean, you know, some of that's fine. But more, you're not getting what you want in the sense that you don't feel fully expressed. You feel like there are parts of you, there are ideas, there are projects, there's voices, there's work, there's bodies of work that are inside of you that are not getting a chance to get out. And that's a very, that's hard on your heart. And I know a lot of you have jobs, you know, you've got full-time jobs or part-time jobs or a couple of part-time jobs. And I don't know about you, but I remember when I had full-time jobs, and I remember having to leave my house early so that I had time to pull over to the side of the road and cry because I was so unhappy. at these jobs. And part of the reason I was unhappy at the job was not because anybody was mean, everybody was fine. It was because I felt like most of me just wasn't welcome. I felt like I was leaving 50% of myself at the door. You know, who I was as an artist, who I was as a spiritual person, who I was as a woman, as a sexual person, as a comedian, as a writer. Nobody cared anything about that. They didn't want to hear about that. They didn't want to hear my ideas. They didn't want my input. They wanted me to show up, do the administrative things that I was good at doing, and go home. And when you are spending 8 hours a day being only 50% of yourself, that's rough. That hurts your heart. That hurts your soul. So I want to create a world in which at least some of the time you are living 100% full out. You know what I mean? And maybe there's some way in which you're feeling stuck. You know, you're feeling stuck because there's stuck thought patterns that you can't seem to get out of, or you're stuck because you can't seem to get going on a project, or you've started, but then you stalled out in the middle, right? Or maybe it's even almost done and you can't quite seem to get it out the door. Or maybe there's piles of clutter. Maybe you have a spare room that is crammed to the gills with stuff, and you know that if you were able to liberate some of that stuff and liberate some of that space, your whole world would brighten up. Right? Any of this ringing a bell? So if you're feeling like you're on some kind of treadmill, you're stuck in a rut of some kind, this is the right place for you. So you're here because you're not feeling 100% creatively expressed. You're here because you feel stuck somewhere. You're not getting everything you want. Or you're here because you come to everything or because someone invited you. So all of those are great reasons to be here. And I want to welcome you again. If you're coming in late, I want to introduce you to Leonore Chia, who's my right-hand team leader and lead coach. Say hi, Leonore.
Hi. Nice to be here with everyone.
Right. So Leonore will be on the chat. She can answer your questions as they come up, and she'll help keep me appraised because it's hard for me to talk, check my notes, and keep on top of the chat all at the same time. So we'll try and, between the two of us, we make almost a whole person. As you may be able to hear in my voice, I have a little cold. So I have a little cold. Sorry about that. Life goes on. So let's do our breathing just to get us a little centered in. Those of you who've worked with me before know that I love to do this. We're just going to inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. And, you know, if you want to set an intention for yourself for this time, if there's a breakthrough you'd like to have or an insight you'd like to gain, or maybe you just want to take this moment to be really grateful for yourself and for your own creative spirit and for the earth that supports you and the air that you breathe. You ready? Let everything go a little loose. Your knees and your shoulders and your jaw. And let's inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for doing that with me. So who am I and what are we doing? In case you don't know me, my name is Sam Bennett. I grew up in Chicago, and now I live in a teeny tiny little beach town in Southern California, kind of near Santa Barbara, called Carpinteria. I'm not trying to be mysterious about it, just nobody's ever heard of it, so it doesn't make sense to say the name. I started my life as an actor and worked as an actor my whole life. I continue to work as an actor. I worked mostly in the theater. I did a lot of improv comedy. I was actually with the Second City for almost 10 years. And you may have heard in the news about a month ago, they had a fire in the offices at the Second City, which was just really, it's like finding out there was a fire at your high school or something. You're like, what? No, that's my place. How could there be? And so a lot of the memorabilia was destroyed. The theater was fine, just the offices burned, and no one was hurt. It was a really, but a lot of the memorabilia left. So they asked everybody to post pictures and stuff. So if you go on Facebook and search Second City Family, hashtag Second City Family, all spelled out, I posted some pictures from my first wedding that had a bunch of my Second City coworkers and friends there. And I'm looking at this photo, and there's me in the big white dress, because I'm the bride. And there's Stephen Colbert, and there's Steve Carell, and there's Nia Vardalos, and there's Ian Gomez, and there's Amy Sedaris, and there's Jim Belushi, and there's John Rabano, and there's Tom Purcell, who's now Colbert's producer. I mean, it's like a who's who of American comedy was at my wedding. So that's my background. And then I came to LA and worked in LA as an actor. And I just got really interested in how creative people make decisions, choose projects, keep going on projects, bail on projects, market projects, make money from projects. I just felt like there was a lot of good information out there about, you know, how to use your time and budget and scheduling for regular people. But, you know, creative people don't really care who's moved their cheese. So I created the Organized Artist Company in 2009. And in just a few short years, you know, I went from having 6 people in a church basement to having, you know, a mailing list of 10,000. We are well into the mid 6 figures in revenue this year. I've published a book called Get It Done, From Procrastination to Creative Genius in 15 Minutes a Day. Get your copy now. And it was published by New World Library. You can get it on Amazon or in your in your local independent bookseller. And I've actually started work on a new book. It's so exciting.
Yay!
Yay! And the new book is called Start Right Where You Are. You're going to want to remember that phrase. Start right where you are. I'll talk about that more in a second. So I've helped thousands, hundreds, and I think thousands of people get unstuck. People who self-describe as creative, who would say like, oh yes, I'm a writer, I'm an artist, I'm an actor, I'm a performer, I'm a healer. And people who would not necessarily self-describe as creative, but just want to zhuzh up their life some. So we're going to spend, I'm going to talk you through some of these 5 reasons why you're not getting what you want and why it's not entirely your fault. And then I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about the Start Right Where You Are program, which is a workshop. The book is going to be based on this workshop that I've taught a couple of times, and I'm teaching again. So you'll get invited into that. It's only going to take a couple of minutes, and it's pretty low priced and low key offer. So we'll talk through a couple of those. We'll talk about the workshop, and then I'll give you the last 2, including the last one of these reasons why you're not getting what you want. Is one of the most powerful spiritual insights I've ever had. It kind of totally changed everything for me once I had this thought. So I'm hoping you'll hang in with me to the end and get this idea and tell me if it's changing things for you. So I'm curious about what your project is. I'm curious about what you think is keeping you stuck. If you want to be typing some of those things into the chat, I'd love to hear it. Great, we've got a lot of old friends here and a lot of new friends. Wonderful, from all over the world. It's so great to see you all. So let's dive in. Let's dive in, right? Let's just start.
Let's start right where we are.
That's so pithy, Leonore. I'm gonna have to write a book on that.
You know?
Yes, let's start right where we are. And you know, I get so annoyed. Well, it doesn't matter why I get annoyed. Let's just start. So 5 reasons you're not getting what you want, and the 5 changes that you can make right now in the course of this call, right this very second, in the course of this webinar, that will change things for you pretty significantly. The first one is you are telling yourself that you don't have the time. You are believing this lie that you don't have the time. It's not the right time. You're not ready. You'll get to it soon. You know, like as soon as you lose 20 pounds, or as soon as the kids are out of the house, or maybe in the summer when you have some time. You keep believing this lie. And I'm sorry to sound harsh about that, but it is. It's a lie that says you don't have the time. And here's how I know it's a lie. Pardon me. Is because we all have the same amount of time. Everybody gets the same 24 hours. Nobody gets more than that. And everyone's juggling as much stuff as you are juggling. Everyone's life is as hard for them as your life is for you. So, there are people with major health concerns, major financial concerns. They got a bunch of little kids running around. They've got ailing parents. They've got demanding jobs. Or they've got a ton of time on their hands. They've retired, or they're taking a break and they've got this huge expanse of time. It doesn't really matter what your calendar looks like. We all have the same 24 hours, and you have a lot more control over how that 24 hours gets spent than you're really allowing yourself to take. So I want you to really get close to the idea that now is the only time. Now is the only time. You've got the same 24 hours that everybody else has, and there's only now. And we are all old enough and experienced enough to have friends who are no longer here with us, who are not here to do their work. There is no later. There is no better time. There is no point at which you will be more ready. You can tell that you're ready because you keep thinking about it. That's the big sign. That's the engraved invitation. The fact that this thought is recurring to you, like, oh, I should la la la, whatever that is. I should write that book. I should start that watercoloring again. I should take up clog dancing or creating the world's best noodle kugel recipe, whatever it is. Today is the day, and now is the moment. And take a second and just imagine the hundreds of people who are registered for this, the hundreds of people who are watching now and will watch, in the days to come. And imagine if everybody was spending 15 minutes a day on the projects that matter most to them. Imagine you had spent 15 minutes today on your prayer and meditation practice, on stretching or dancing or playing guitar or ukulele or drawing or doodling or making jewelry, whatever it is you love to do, whatever it is that lights you up inside, going to the beach and watching the ocean. Whatever it is, if you had spent 15 minutes on that today, what would your mood be like? How would your day be unfolding? And what if everybody did that? What if everybody on this call did that? What if everybody on the planet did that? And this, P.S., by the way, is why I'm doing all this. Because I have a vision of a world in which every single person spends 15 minutes a day or more on the projects that matter most to them, the project that will make the most difference to them. And that project, that work is part of our conversation around the water cooler, around the dinner table, around on the bus. People are talking about it in the same way that people talk about the diet that they're trying or the new workout thing. Oh, I'm doing, yoga booty. Oh, I'm doing Pilates. I want people talking about their creative projects. I want people saying, oh, I've been messing around with watercolors. Oh, really? How fun. I've been writing bad poetry. I wrote bad poetry last month. Like, I want this to be part of our conversation. I want it to be a big, of course you're working on your creative projects. Of course we're talking about that. And of course we get to know each other in new ways because we're having this conversation. So that's my big why. That's the reason we're doing this is because I want to live in that world. And I want you to be part of this revolution with me. So think of your day as the way it's unfolded now, and imagine your day if you had spent even just 15 minutes on the projects that are pulling on your sleeve. And think about the attitude shift. Think about how different that would be for you. So my question is, are you willing to drop the story that there's not enough time or that now's not the right time? Are you willing to just move right past that? Just stop letting that be an excuse. Stop telling yourself you're too busy. There's this cult of busy in the world, like busy is the only thing. I'm so busy. Oh, I can't possibly, I'm so busy. You wouldn't believe my schedule. I'm so busy. I have to be up at 5:30 with the dog and 4:30 with the children, and I'm so busy. I have this presentation. I'm so busy. It's like, it's the only thing anybody talks about is how busy they are. Well, yes, we're all busy. Stop the stories, stop the drama, and really enjoy the time. Enjoy the time, enjoy the privilege of being busy, and make the time for yourself.
Yeah, something I really appreciate about you, Sam, is that, I mean, because, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you own the business, like we both work in these entrepreneurial circles where there is so much this glorification of busy. And one thing I really appreciate about you is that I know that you don't uphold that. Like when we're talking, you know, we often have a really relaxed vibe in our conversations because we both have like sworn off with getting into this busy whirlwind.
Absolutely. I was just at a conference in San Jose a week or two ago, and there was a whole presentation on like preventing adrenal fatigue and burnout, and how to build in time for nature and build in time for your creative projects and build in time so you've got snuggle time with your loved ones. And I'm like, does everybody not do that?
Yeah,
Like,
it's actually terrifying. Well, it's terrifying how many people of power there are who are trying to affect big change, but at significant cost to themselves. And I feel like that's a big myth too, that you can't succeed or like get anything done without it coming at extreme personal cost.
Exactly. Yes, I take a big stand for the idea that you can have everything you want and you do not have to be running around like your hair's on fire. For sure. So let's check in with the chat, just to make sure there's not any burning questions going unanswered or things people are wondering about.
Yeah, I think Bill commented the ultimate description of this in answer to your question, which is just so busy, nothing happens.
Oh, Lord, preach, Bill,
Yeah.
preach. So busy that nothing happens.
Yeah. So Larry agrees. Roadblocks are procrastination and being too busy. Yeah, just a lot of busy. And where do I begin? I'm writing my life story. Where do I begin?
Right. Good. So that's exactly the question, right? So step one, drop the story that you're too busy, drop the story that there's not enough time, drop the story that some other time is going to be better than this time right now. Okay, good. That was number one. Number two is the reason you're not getting what you want or not moving forward on what you want is because you've got some emotional baggage around it. You've been burned, basically. And I get it. Maybe your third grade teacher told you you couldn't write. You weren't a good writer. Or maybe your mom told you that, artists were selfish. Or maybe you put your work out there and didn't get the results you wanted. Maybe you got a bad response. Maybe you got bad reviews, or somebody hurt your feelings, or it didn't go well.
Here's one. You had a bad experience with a collaborator.
Ooh, yeah. So to that, and then you nurse that hurt. You don't want to get hurt again, so it feels really risky, and you think, I don't want to do that again, or that's not for me. And what I want to say to you is, yes, of course you got hurt. Of course someone tried to discourage you. Of course you made an error in judgment. Of course you picked a bad partner. Of course something went all pear-shaped and sideways and awful. Of course you lost money. Of course you did. Life is not about an endless series of crashing successes. Life is about life. Art is about art. It's like, if every love story was like, oh, we fell in love and lived happily ever after, how spiritually mature would you get then? Not very. We learn by trying things, and by falling down, and by having people discourage us, and by getting up anyway, and by looking at criticisms and seeing what we can learn from them, and by getting our feelings hurt. If you're not getting your feelings hurt, you're not in the game. And you're tough. You guys are so much tougher than you give yourselves credit for being. I know you're delicate little flowers. I am too. Like, we're so super sensitive, and sometimes we armor up quite a bit, because when you're as sensitive as the people who are here are, you're not very old before you realize you can't really walk around like this. You're not going to make it through the playground. You're not going to make it past the teasing. You're not going to make it past your first homeless person where you think your heart's going to fall out of your body. So you armor up a little bit and really give yourself some credit. You're tougher than you think. And your work is tougher than you think. Your work can take it. So be smart, don't go feeding your babies to the vultures. As I say all the time, do not go to the empty cookie jar. Do not go to the empty cookie jar. Stop looking for approval from people who are not capable of approving of you. Don't look for support from people who are not capable of supporting you. But find the people who can support you. Find the people who do understand what you're doing, and people who can cheer you on past the obstacles and past the marketplace. And I keep thinking about that. I meant to look up the exact quote from League of Their Own, where Tom Hanks says, of course it's hard. It's supposed to be hard. The hard is what makes it great. The hard is what makes it great. And so to understand that, first of all, it's not easier for anyone. Every single person on the planet got discouraged, got their heart broken, has had projects fail miserably, has lost tons of money, made bad choices in partnerships. Everybody. I'm just trying to think, is there anybody I know who has not had that? No, everyone I know has had that experience time and time again. It's not that it doesn't happen to other people, it's just that most people don't talk about it all that much. So you get this feeling of like, oh, somehow everybody else has it dialed except me. No. It's hard because it's supposed to be hard. And once you get over the fear of being hurt, everything starts to unfold. I remember when I was first learning improv at the Second City, I had a teacher, I think it was Michael Gelman. Michael Gelman said that the essence of improvisation is standing on stage with your heart and your arms wide open to your partner and saying, in essence, I trust you not to hurt me. And that it is from that place of vulnerability, of understanding that you will get hurt, of welcoming the hurt, that true comedy and true art is born. So what I encourage you to do, so my super practical tip on this, is to change whatever that but is into an and, right? So you've got this thing, well, I would be a writer, but my third grade teacher told me I couldn't write. No, I would do this, but my family discourages it. Or I would do this, but I got really burned before. No, I'm doing this and I got really burned before. I'm doing this and my third grade teacher told me I couldn't. I'm doing this and my family doesn't understand. And feel the energy in that and, right? The but is like shut down, smack down, dream deferred, never happen again, lockdown. And is like, oh, there's possibility here. Like these two things could be true at once. And in my experience, things that are successes are also failures. I was just talking about this with a friend of mine who had a launch that didn't go as well as she wanted it to. And I said, it's a little bit like, again, in the theater when people talk about a flop, oh, that show's on Broadway and it was a flop. Well, that's not really fair because the show may not have done well. The show may have closed. The show may have lost money. But the costumes were a success. That one actor in that part was a success. That song was a hit. That part was great. This choreography was great. Like there's always elements of it that are a success. It's not the whole thing is a failure. Some of it's a failure. And as someone smart said, it's only a failure if you don't get up. So that's number two. You're stuck because you've got some emotional baggage. Somebody told you couldn't, you got burned, you got your heart hurt, and you've kind of backed off it. And I'm here to tell you, dive in. However much it hurts to try and fail, it doesn't hurt nearly as much as not trying. I'm going to say that again. However much it hurts to try and fail, It doesn't hurt nearly as much as not trying. No one gets to the end of their life and says, wow, I made a lot of really risky decisions. That was dumb. People get to the end of their lives and they say, wow, I wish I'd tried more. I wish I dared more. Right? How are you guys doing with all this? How's this landing for you?
Martin says, fall down 4 times, stand up 5.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Barbara says, self-sabotage all the way.
Good. Good. Okay, great. Great, good. So yes, so you're hearing me, you're feeling me. That's excellent. Yeah, so let's move on to number 3. You ready? So number 1, there's plenty of time and now is the right time. Number 2, yes, sometimes working creatively hurts. Welcome to the party. Third thing, the reason I think that you're stuck, you're not getting what you want, and that you can change right now, is you're controlling the wrong things. Or you're trying to control the wrong things. You're spending a lot of time being very upset about things that you can't control. Like the economy, like the marketplace, like the state of publishing, like the internet, like social media, like your mom, like your friends, like all of this external stuff. You keep thinking, if only those things were different, then I could do what I want to do. And that is completely backwards. You may have noticed that you cannot make anyone do anything, even when it's for their own good. You actually can't even really make you do anything. That's how ineffective that is. So when it comes to controlling things, you need to start with what you can do, what you have 100% control over. The stuff you do not have 100% control over, let it go. Let it go, because you don't have any control over it. Right? It's like if it's raining, like what, are you going to be upset? It's not happening to you. It's just happening. So that idea that it's him, it's her, it's circumstances, it's the boss, it's the money, it's the bank account, it's whatever it is. No. It's in here. It's in here. Everything that you need to control is within your immediate control. You can have 100% control over what you eat. You can have 100% control over how often you breathe with consciousness. I mean, it's a parasympathetic response, you're doing it anyway, but how much do you take time to take a breath and root into the present moment? You can control how often you pray or how often you think thoughts of gratitude or appreciation. You can control what you think. You can control your reactions to things. You can control what you focus on, what you notice about a certain situation. It's one of the things I think about, you know, in some of the sort of self-helpy kind of new agey stuff, they're like, oh, you know, once you start thinking positively, you just manifest more positive things in your life. And I actually don't think that's true. I think great things and crappy things happen to everyone pretty much equally, frankly. But what I've noticed is that as you have an increasingly positive attitude, you stop noticing the troubling things as much. You just start participating with it. Like you just stop believing that it's a problem. You know, you just don't let those things bother you. You know what I mean? It's a little bit like when you're in love, like when you first fall in love and like everything is all stars and moonbeams and you're so happy and you just can't believe that anybody on the planet has ever been as happy as you are right in that moment. And of course, you know, things are still a mess. The Trader Joe's parking lot is still a zoo and your boss is still a jerk. And yeah, the bank account's still low, but you don't care because you're in love, right? It's like that. When you start to control what you focus on, including your creative projects, you can fall in love with your creative projects and have that same lit up on the pink clouds feeling. And all that little day-to-day stuff will not bother you nearly as much, I guarantee. I guarantee. So when you, what did I write here? When you focus on what's out there, you end up complaining. When you focus on what's out there, you end up a victim. When you focus on what's out there, you are handing over your power. When you focus on what's in here, you're transforming. So when you focus on what's out there, you're complaining. When you focus on what's in here, you're transforming. So stop putting your focus where it doesn't belong and start really noticing what's there for you. And I know some of those external circumstances can be really compelling. Like I just had a conversation with a client this morning who's like, she's got aging parents who are having a crisis, and then there's a situation with some other members of her family. Like it's very serious. There's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of hard decisions to be made, and it feels like a big deal. And she felt like, oh, I've got to put my life on hold and go deal with this situation in my family. But that's not strictly speaking true. She needs to put some of things on hold to deal in part with the situation with her family, but she does not need to put everything on hold. What she needs is boundaries. What you need is boundaries. And you need to be able to control your thinking and control your focus so that you can really celebrate everything great that's happening and everything great that you are making happen, and get out of this story that somehow things are bad. And actually, Leonard, the example I wrote down for this involves you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. When I when I started the organized artist company, it was just me. For a long time, it was just me. I didn't have a VA. I didn't have anybody. I did everything myself. I did all my Infusionsoft. I did all my website stuff. And I just taught myself how to do it because I didn't know it was supposed to be hard. So I just did it. And eventually the business got big enough that I was starting to need some more help. And I had a coach who was yelling at me about growing my team and getting more people. But I had had a bunch of friends who were also entrepreneurs who were telling me all kinds of horror stories. Oh, I got a virtual assistant and she was awful and it took me forever to explain things and then they couldn't do it and then I had to do it over again and it took me so much time and it cost me so much money, and oh, I have a web designer who's holding my site hostage and I can't even get to it, and like all these awful stories. And finally I was like, wait a minute, that's not my story. That's not my story. It may be true that other people have had disastrous experiences working with teams, but that's not my story. I'm not buying into that story. I'm not participating in that story. That story is not even really part of my actual experience. When I think about how it has been for me to work on teams, to work with other people, I've had great experiences. Again, in the theater, that's what ensemble's all about. So I was like, wait a minute, that's just not true. I'm going to focus on what I know to be true for me and what I can control, which is my experience with teams is great. And no sooner did I flip that switch inside of my mind than I'm at a conference in Atlanta, I think, and this beautiful woman comes sidling up to me and she's like, hello, my name is Leonora. I'm an online business manager and I'd like to talk to you about your business. And I'm like, I'd like to talk to you about my business. And that was like, what, 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we've been happily married ever since.
That's right.
And I will also say, it's not like actually it's been sunshine and roses the whole way. Like it took some doing for us to work out how did we work best together and what was each other's zones of genius. And, we had misunderstandings and missteps and things where things went completely pear-shaped and sideways and expensive. Yeah, because that happens. But we had a vision of the business and we knew, what we could make happen together, and we hung in there with each other. So the minute you start to change that story, whatever it is you're believing about what you can't control, oh, well, everybody knows that it's hard to grow a team. Everybody knows that the economy's crap. Everybody knows that writers don't make money. No, you control that story for yourself. Stop kind of trying to control the things you can't control and start controlling the things you have 100% control over. Tiny changes, big difference. Little changes, big difference.
Awesome.
I want to check in with everybody and see how you all are doing and how this is, like I said, how this is landing. It's great to see you all here, and I can't believe how many of you there are, and you're all still, I love it when everybody stays. For some reason, I'm always very flattered when people stay. I guess it's because sometimes I don't stay. Like I'll register for other people's webinars and I'll listen to 10 or 15 minutes and I'm like, yeah, okay, I got it. And then I'll log off.
Yeah. People are being a little bit quiet, but feel free to type in your comments and I can read them as they come in. There's a little bit of a delay, but Anne-Marie comments, change your perspective, you change everything, which I think is what you were just talking about, Sam.
That's right. And it sounds, it's so silly. It sounds so silly and simple, but it's a little bit the way 12-step programs sound so silly and simple. All you have to do to not be an alcoholic is don't drink. That's it. Really simple. Don't drink. Except what you have to do is not drink. And it's incredibly hard. So, we can say to ourselves all day long, oh, I just need to shift my perspective. But actually exerting the mental discipline to shift your perspective will take you into lands unknown. It'll change everything for you. So let's talk a little bit about this program, because like I said, I'm starting this new book called Start Right Where You Are, and it's based on a program. I've taught this program a couple of times before. And I created the program, I created Start Right Where You Are, because I realized that I was holding out on you. I wasn't telling you the whole story. When I was teaching classes like Get It Done and Get Your Work Out There and Creative Genius CEO, I talked some about the inner game of creative productivity and creativity, but mostly I talked about the outer game. Mostly it's about scheduling and budgeting and marketing your project and making money from your project and websites and web forms and processes, and all that's really important. I'm not saying it's not. But I wasn't talking about the thing that I think really helped me move as far as I've come as fast as I was able to, and that's 100% that inner game, that inner focus, really looking at my beliefs, really looking at my anxiety, really looking at what I allowed to control me, the stories I allowed to control me, moving forward on my stuff, clearing out stuff and clutter, both mental clutter and physical clutter. That's really the ticket. Like that's really where the transformation happened, was inside. And I didn't have any way to teach that. So that's what Start Right Where You Are is really all about. It's about your creative projects, whatever they are, but really it's about your inner game. And yeah, some of it does sound kind of simple, but if you've read a grillion self-help books and you are not seeing the results in your life that you want, then you haven't actually started implementing those lessons. You understand them. Of course you understand them. You're incredibly intelligent. Like you get it. I know you get it. But you don't get it. You're not doing it. You're not living it. So Start Right Where You Are is about starting right where you are. Starting right where you are. And moving forward in a way that is right for you in your life right now, that's appropriate for you, that matches your temperament and your natural flow and your creative spirit. Like, what is it that you want to see flower? And how do you want to get there? That's really what the course is. So it's it's a very easy course. It's 6 sessions. I'm going to put the URL right up there, display offer. It's just startrightwhereyouare.com. You can go check it out. You can also click on the button. You can go look at it later too. But it's 6, so it's 6 sessions with me. I'll teach the material live. I'm doing it only on audio just because I feel like that's such a simpler format, and people I know really like to listen like while they're jogging or working out or doing housework. So I won't be doing it on video, but I will be doing it on audio. And there's plenty of time for live question and answer on every single call, because like I said, I'm using it as the basis for my next book. So I want as much of your input as I can get. I want as many stories as I can hear. I want as many success stories and trouble spots, like where is it not clear? I'm looking for your help. I'm looking for you to collaborate with me even on this material a little bit, which is why it's at an incredible bargain price. I usually offer this class for $497, and it's less than half that for you guys. So yeah, that's it. It's yeah, 6 90-minute sessions. You get some bonus ebooks. You get a year in the 365 Club, which includes a monthly call with me. So you actually get a full year of support. And if you're already in 365 Club, we just add another year onto that for you. And just a little, just a little incentive for those of you who are like, ooh, this is tempting. Let me tempt you further, because it's a great deal. I mean, you know, it's just a great deal. But if you are one of the first 50 people to enroll, I will do a special call just with you all where we're going to get really behind the scenes on like, how did I actually go from 2009 being 42 years old and a completely dead broke unemployed actor to 6 years later being 48 years old and living in my dream town a block from the beach with dolphins and seals and having a published book that Seth Godin wrote a rave review of, which I'm still totally not over the fact that that happened. You know, and being asked to speak on giant stages in front of thousands of people. Like, how did I do that? I will tell you in as much detail as I can how that happened, and I will answer your questions. So how I got published, behind the scenes, no holds barred, ask me anything. And that'll just be for the first 50 people. Now that offer is not printed on the sales page. It's not on the order form. It's not anywhere. So because I'm not offering it to everybody, I'm just offering it to the first 50 so that you, if you're into this, you can jump in. And as usual, this course comes with my satisfaction guaranteed or your money cheerfully refunded. So if you do this program and you get to the end of it and you're like, wow, Sam, that was really not what I wanted or not what I expected or it wasn't worth it, then let me know and we'll give you your money back. I mean, if I haven't helped you, I don't want your money. So there's really no risk to you. All the risk is on me to make the course worthwhile. We start October 16th. So we've got about 2 weeks before we start, and there's 6 sessions. So we end before Thanksgiving. And I'd love to have you. I'd love to have you. I'd love to have as many of you as you can. So if you're interested, I hope that you'll go to startrightwhereyouare.com and jump in, get a friend. You know, I haven't offered anything this incredibly inexpensive for a long time. So I'm hoping that some of you will just do it just because it's fun. You know, like it's, I've had people take this course multiple times. And what they've told me is that even though it's the same material, first of all, because I'm teaching it live, it's always going to be a little different. I always have new stories and stuff to tell. But who you are is different. So what you bring to the worksheets, what you bring to the questions, what you bring to the inquiry, the way you hear the material is going to be different every time. So even if you've worked with me before, I think you'll find this course really illuminating. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Does anybody have any like weird questions or things that are unclear about this?
Yeah, if you just have questions, feel free to type it into the chat and we'll get it answered.
Great. Good, good, good. All right. Let's keep going. Let's keep going on this. The fourth reason that I think that you're stuck and you're not getting what you want, but you can change right now, is that you're telling yourself some version of the story that's like, I'm not allowed to be like that. I'm not allowed to be like that. I'm not allowed to, like, I would publish my book, I would start a business, I would charge more, I would do this thing or that thing, but I'm not allowed to be like that. I'm not allowed to be that greedy. I'm not allowed to be that selfish. I'm not allowed to be that big for my britches. You know, who does she think she is? I'm not allowed to be that pushy. I'm not allowed to be that demanding. I'm not allowed to be whatever it is for you. And go ahead and type it in. Like, what is it for you? What do you think? Like, oh, I would do that, except I don't want people to think that I'm da-da-da-da. Whatever that da-da-da-da is, go ahead and write that in. I'd love to hear what that is. You know, I would do my thing, except I don't want people to think it's too weird. You know, I don't want them to think I'm weird. And I want you to think about Just imagine with me, just for a second, what if you were that way? What if you were willing to be that pushy or that demanding or that selfish, even just for a minute? Like, make a little picture of that in your mind. What would you be like? What would you say? What would you do? How would you behave differently? What if you were even just 1%, just 1% more selfish, more pushy, more dangerous, more weird, more sexy, more demanding, more whatever? Make a picture in your mind of what that would be like. What would you ask for? What would you demand? What would your interactions with other people be like? What would your results be like? What kind of decisions would you make? What sort of actions would you get? What kind of actions would you take? If you were willing to be that thing just a little bit more, right? Little change, big difference. Little change, big difference. So what are some of the things that you're thinking, oh, I would love to be just that thing that maybe you're thinking, like, I think we resist the things that we're secretly tempted by, like, oh, I would never want people to think that I was so pushy as to stand center stage and sing my song, except that what you really want to do is stand center stage and sing your song. So in the push-pull of that, what if you lean into it just a little bit? So that's my immediate solution for you. Just dial that up, just 1%. Just one. I mean, you're not going to change. You're not going to suddenly start being some mean, weird, greedy person. You're a lovely person. You've been very successful in your life so far. People like you. I guarantee that this is true because it's true of all my people. You can afford to be 1% more selfish. You can afford to be 1% pushier. You can afford to be 1% more demanding. You can afford to be 1% have stronger boundaries, 1% more clear, grabby, whatever it is. Whatever it is that you're so afraid to be, I guarantee you, you can afford to be 1% more that way. And then what would happen? I was looking at a testimonial from somebody who took this class a while ago, and she said something about how, like, she was starting to notice that she was listening to her intuition a little bit more. That's a big part of the class, is really cultivating that creative intuition, cultivating that inner voice and that inner wisdom, and exercises and practices to really strengthen that muscle. Because it's a muscle and a practice. If you just have to, everybody's got it. You just have to do it more to get used to working it. She said she was really starting to work it more. And she was realizing that that part of her was a little sassy, and she was kind of digging this sort of sassiness because she's such a sweet person in actual life, but there was this like little bit of sass coming out. And I think, she really enjoyed it. I think her husband really enjoyed it. I think her coworkers enjoyed it. So I want to give you a little permission to be a little bit more of that person that you're afraid you're not allowed to be. The thing that's keeping you, the fear of being the thing that's keeping you from doing what you want. Does that make sense? Let me look at this.
Definitely, yeah. Signa says, other people in my field would say, who do you think you are? You're not good enough.
Right.
Susan says, too selfish, too egotistical. Denise says, I'm not allowed because they think I'm wasting my drawing talent if I paint abstracts instead of representational art.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. So be a little bit more disobedient. Be a little bit more egocentric. 1% more, just 1% more. Martin asked a great question. He said he's still happily using the Get It Done workshop materials. Would start right where you are, work well alongside Get It Done. Yeah, absolutely. They're designed actually to kind of go together. So I think it's new material and start right where you are. It doesn't repeat anything from Get It Done. I mean, some of the basic concepts are there, but they're actually designed to sort of be friends like that. So I think if you've done Get It Done, you'll really enjoy Start Right Where You Are. I think if you've done Start Right Where You Are before, you're going to enjoy Start Right Where You Are because, again, it's just different every time, and it's and especially this time where I've lengthened the class time. So each call is 90 minutes. So I've got time to really teach and really get into some concepts and some worksheets, because again, it's not just about me talking, it's about you implementing in your actual life and then doing really Q&A so that you get the personalized attention that you need. And we learn so much from each other. It's so helpful to hear somebody else ask a question that maybe you didn't even know you were having, but then somebody else asks it and you're like, oh, good, that's what I needed to hear. So yeah, and again, and if you get to the end and be like, actually, Sam, this was super boring and I didn't like it, then I'll just give you your money back and no problem, right? Good,
Yeah.
okay.
Here's another question from Joanne, Sam, about the program. She says, will there be homework in the program?
Only in the sense of ways in which you are being. Like, I will encourage you to be different ways and to try and do things differently in your actual life. So there's not homework in the sense of, okay, today you've got to make a vision board about what you want your life to like, or tomorrow you need to make an action plan about this or that. It's not really about that. It's not about the, like I said, it's not really about the outer game. It's really about the inner game, about these little shifts, big difference. Little shift, big difference. So I guess the answer is yes and no. But I don't expect, in the sense of, is it time consuming? No, I do not expect it to like tape, other than the actual class time every week. I don't expect it to take up a lot of extra time. Some people I know like to listen to the recordings again and again, which I think is great. You come to it as a new person every time, so you'll get something new every time. I've also noticed, because I've got recordings that I listen to over and over and over again, and I swear every time I listen to it, I'm like, has that always been there? I've never heard that before. And I think part of the reason is when you hear a new idea or something really lights you up, like you go on a little mental trip about it. Like you're like, oh, that's so true. And it's so true in this way and that way and this way and that way. And oh, that's so interesting. And I should tell this person about it. And oh, it reminds me of this time. And you sort of miss the next 10 sentences that the teacher is saying. So that's part of why it's beneficial to listen to it again, is because the second time you're like, oh yeah, that great idea. Oh, and now I'm hearing these other sentences that I missed both the first time. So there's homework in the sense that I want you to do stuff. I want you to change who you're being and how you're interacting in the world, but it's very subtle and not time consuming, if that makes sense. Good. Yeah, who said you're an expert, right? I know. I think that's really interesting. I have to say, I've never, I hear that concern a lot, like, oh, I'm going to get unmasked and people are going to think I'm a fraud, and people are going to think I'm claiming to, expertise that I don't have, or and I've never really had that happen. Like, I've never had it happen to me. And I'm trying to think if I've ever heard of it happening to anyone else. Like, my experience is that if you stand up there and just know what you know, we're not going to claim to know anything we don't know. We're not saying we're an expert in everything. I'm not saying I know everything, but I know enough to, reach my hand 10 steps back down the road, right? So I can help. I maybe can't help you do everything, but I can help you get from there to here for sure. So that's all we're claiming. And my experience is that while people get very concerned about, like, oh, what if people think I'm not an expert? Like, it doesn't really come up. It's kind of a fantasy, But I get the concern, and I think that thing of I'm a fraud is something that every single person experiences. Right up there with getting hurt, right up there with feeling like there's not enough time, right up there with feeling like now's not the right time. Everybody feels that way. Everyone feels like they're secretly a fraud. Nobody's walking around going, wow, I know stuff. That just doesn't happen. All right, I want to get to this last, like, number one thing that totally rocked my world when I figured it out. But I also want to make sure that you guys are getting your questions answered. How are we doing? Yes, the calls are on Friday. They're on Friday mornings, kind of Pacific time, I think. I tried to do it at a time that more or less pretty early for the Australians. Sorry, guys, but I think for pretty much everybody else in the English-speaking world, the time should work okay. Leonora, is there any other questions that I'm missing in there?
Not about the workshop. So I think maybe you can do the last one, and then we can just have kind of open Q&A of what's coming up from people around this webinar. Totally.
Great. Good. And it looks like we've got people already signing up. So fantastic. That's great. So yeah, startrightwhereyouare.com is where the information about the course is, and the click to the order form. All right, so here it is. Here's the number one reason why you're not getting what you want, and you're not leveraging the power of Start Right Where You Are. So here's what I noticed, and I had this question for a really long time. This used to be number one on my long list of questions for God. This was number one. And the question was this: why is it that sometimes we set an intention, we want to do something, and then we move our feet just a teeny tiny bit, like we take a little teeny tiny action, and the universe comes rushing at us? It's like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden, immediately you get what you need, or somebody introduces you to somebody perfect person, or you get the exact amount of money that you need, or like you've had that experience, right? Where you sort of make a decision, you take a little action, and whoop, like you take one step and the universe takes 99 steps towards you. Amazing, right? It's amazing when that happens. I get those calls and emails all the time. But there are other times when you think, okay, I really want to do this, and you really work hard and nothing happens. Nothing changes, nothing happens. Really frustrating, right? So here's what I figured out. You kind of have to do this with me in order for it to make sense. Imagine that you are at the center of your life, which you are. So you're the center of the wheel, right? And everything radiates out from you like spokes on a bicycle wheel, right? And these spokes represent your relationship with the potentiality of all things, right? So anything you could do or could reach or could be is represented by these spokes, the relationships, the opportunities, the money, the everything. You with me? All right, so if you're in the center and you have all these spokes, just from where you are right now, look around, imagining these spokes, and just turning your head from side to side, like see what you can see. Like I can see just to about there. And over there I can see just to the corner of the couch, right? So what can you see from where you are? Now, I want you to move just a little bit in any direction, small amount in any direction. So I'm going to move a little bit here. So can you imagine how those bicycle spokes shift? Right? So I was here and everything was sort of this way, and now I'm here, so these lines shift this way, and now maybe there's new lines and new relationships with the potentiality of all things. And now you can see how things can get to you that couldn't get to you before, or things that were blocked are available. And now if I turn my head, okay, I can see a little bit further over here, but I can see way further over here than I could before. I can see around a corner that I couldn't see when I was just here. This is what it is. Little changes, big shifts. When you change from the center out, boom, 1%, boom, everything changes. And when you have that feeling of like, I've worked really hard and nothing's changed, it's because you haven't really moved. You haven't really moved. You haven't moved spiritually. You haven't moved emotionally. You haven't moved physically. You're just running your same old pattern. So you're staying in the same place and then you're getting the same results over and over again. The minute you start getting different results, that's when you'll know that you've changed. That's when you'll know, by the results in your life, by the way you feel about the results in your life. So that's it. You know, I think that's my explanation. Now I have another. Now I don't have to ask God that question, but I've got more questions for God when I get there. So that's what I want you to own is your centeredness at the center of things, and what would really make it worth it to you? You know, what result would you like to see in 6 weeks of classes with me that would really, you know, make it worth $197 to experience a new version of you in the world and let the world experience your work? Remember before when we were imagining if everybody spent 15 minutes on their work, if everybody on this call or everybody who listened to this recording or everybody in the whole world spent 15 minutes on their work, Like, how many more books would there be? How many more paintings would there be? How much more music would there be? I mean, can you imagine? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? At no time has the world ever turned around and said, like, that's it, that's enough poetry, stop now. Like, no, we just want more and more and more. We want more stories. We want more art. We want more clean houses and open hearts and good compliments and great dinners with friends. We want more of that. And you can make it happen in your life right now, but not by doing things the same old way. So that's my invitation to you is, let me just walk through these 5 again so you understand what the invitation actually is. The invitation actually is to, 1, drop the story that there's not enough time. 2, drop the story that whatever damage or emotional baggage has happened to you is bad. It didn't happen to you, it happened for you. It wasn't to shut you down, it was to help you grow. Right? Number 3, stop controlling the wrong things. Put your focus on the things that you can actually control, right? Number 4, stop telling yourself that you're not allowed to be the way that you know you need to be in order to get your project done. Stop telling yourself that that's not possible. And start allowing yourself to make a decision, set a goal, and then move just a little bit and see what opens up for you. That's what Start Right Where You Are is about. That's what it's for. And I'd really welcome your input and your help and your insight, because you guys are the smartest people I know. So speaking of smart people, what are your smart questions? Let's see.
Ellen says, I'm so glad to hear about the new book. The most important stuff you taught me is how to deal with the inner blocks and demons.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the inner game.
Mm-hmm. Ruby says, so my question is, I have a full first draft and treatment for 2 books, and then I don't know what the next steps are or what to do next, and then nothing moves forward. And I get frustrated by not knowing, and I put it to the side, and that makes me really sad. I get stuck in the how and the next steps.
Right. So actually, I would disagree. I think what you're getting stuck in is the warm, comforty down comforter of I don't know. I think there's something about like, well, I've got this work, but I don't know what to do next. I don't know what the right thing is. I don't know how to get an A+ in this. That helplessness feels comfortable for you and for a lot of people. I hear this a lot. I think you probably do know what to do. If nothing else, I think you probably know at least one person you could call and ask for some advice, or some Googling you could do, or a book you could read. I mean, you're not without resources, right? And you're kind of, and here's the thing about getting a creative project out in the world is you're kind of at the sparkly breadcrumb stage, right? There isn't a right way. There isn't the way to do it. You just kind of have to start. So start talking to everyone you know about these projects. Start, spend 15 minutes a day, make 1 phone call or email a day, 1 reach out, 1 gratitude, 1, touch out to someone that you think might know something or could help you, and just see what sparks, right? You start moving. It's not about finding the perfect path and walking it. It's about you moving just a little bit and seeing what opens up for you as you move. So drop the story that you don't know, because you do know. And allow yourself to know what you know. If there's conventional wisdom things that don't make sense to you, like I get this all the time. People are like, oh, you should, I don't know, what would be something like, oh, you should podcast, Sam. You should have a podcast. Well, I understand why people would say that, but that's not for me. I don't want to have a podcast. And now I've spent enough time trusting my own intuition and my own inner voice that I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. Right? And I don't feel stuck in like, I don't know if I should have a podcast. No, I'm like, no, not for me. Not today anyway, maybe later, but not now. So really allow yourself to know what you know, and allow yourself to make your own rules. You can do it your way, and just keep going. Keep seeing where's the impulse. Where's that next inspired action? That next like little intuition of like, I kind of want to call that person, or oh, I wonder what that person's doing, or that's funny, I haven't thought about that person in a long time. Great, reach out to them and see what happens. Let it unfold. Give it a little air. Quit trying to smother it, right? Because you do know. And the world needs it. The world needs it. Good question. Really good question, Ruby. I'm super proud of you.
Awesome. Martin says, bingo, that makes so much sense.
Good. Good. Denise says she signed up. Yay. Super excited. Cheryl said she signed up. I'm delighted. Very good. How are we doing here? It's so funny the way this chat displays for me. Like, it's not really right. I'm not sure what's up with that. Good. Other questions you guys have? I'm happy to let you go. As long as you're not feeling, stuck anywhere. But yeah, that thing about the how is really, it's a little bit of a trick that school plays on us, that like we're supposed to know how in advance. And the fact of the matter is that, especially for creative projects, there isn't really a how. I mean, there's a way that some people have done it before, but that's not necessarily your way. And the things that people get really excited about is when people do it a whole new way. And people are like, I don't know, I just shot this whole movie on my iPhone and now it's up and now I'm, all of a sudden I'm at Telluride. Or, I just started, doing this because I liked it, because I was interested in paint by numbers, or I was interested in old Dungeons and Dragons, whatever. I don't know. People just get into what they're into and they follow the path that the project takes them on. I mean, ask the project. Ask the project. You can all do this right now. Close your eyes. Ask and envision your project in front of you, whatever it is. Whatever it is. See it in front of you and ask it, what do you want me to do? What's the next thing? What's one thing you want? Let the project tell you what to do. There's a wisdom there that you're not allowing yourself to hear, so go ahead and hear it. Go ahead and hear it. Good. Anything else unfolding here for everybody? You guys look great. You look like you're doing really well. Terrific. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up this call. If you do have questions, you're welcome to email us at sam@theorganizedartistcompany.com, all the way spelled out, because I'm a spell it all out for you kind of a girl. sam@theorganizedartistcompany.com. And, we'll be happy to answer your questions. And do jump in right away. If you're getting that intuition of like, oh, I think this might be right for me, just go ahead and jump in. Just go ahead and jump in. Like I said, there's a money back guarantee. And here's what I know for sure. It's not like if you don't do this class, you're going to magically have an extra $197 at the end of the year. The money's going to go somewhere. So you might as well spend it on you and what's most important to you. Because otherwise, we're going to be here next October and having the same conversation. And you don't want that, and I don't want that. So see if this is maybe the thing that can change things for you. Because I've had experiences before where it's really changed things for people. Leonore, is there anything you want to say or add before I do one more round of breathing to close this out?
I guess just to say that, I think we really live in the information overload culture where such a big part of the things we've been talking about, of the busyness and the overwhelm, just comes from how much there is out there, and that the confusion of I don't know how to move forward. And one thing I really appreciated about Sam's work is learning to be more incisive in cutting through that, and just knowing that all this information is out there, but the way forward for me that I need for my creative projects is within myself, if I just stop and listen. And I'll say that I think there's a lot to be said for the momentum of doing it with a group of other people, whether it's a group that you're with in person or a container like this where our momentum can kind of move forward collectively. That's the alchemy of being human, and just realizing that you're not alone with it. So yeah, if you feel called to be with our group this fall, we'd love to have you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Leonore. Yeah, I think that's exactly right on. And I hear that all the time too, of oh, it's just so good to know that I'm not alone. Like, oh, that person is insecure and that person thinks they're a fraud and that person struggles with what to do next. And like, oh, okay, maybe I can do it. We're tribal animals. We learn best from each other and by mirroring each other and watching each other. So that's one of the reasons why these group programs are so effective. And in my opinion, even more effective than one-on-one coaching. That's why I do group programs and not very much one-on-one coaching. Just a little bit, tiny bit here and there. Good. Let's see. Any other questions? Yeah, I understand. Gwendolyn says, I'm retired now and on a limited budget. This costs more due to the exchange from Canada to US funds. Yeah, I understand that. In different countries, the exchange rate is going to make it feel more or less expensive. The question is not so much how expensive is it. The question is how worth it is it to you? What would have to happen in this program for you to say, wow, that was worth 10 times what I paid for it? What result would you need to see? What commitment would you need to make to yourself and to your projects in order to get to the end of November and feel like, wow, that was 100% worth it? Because that's what I'm interested in. I want you to feel like you got 10 times value. You spent 197 and you got $10,000 worth of value out of it. That's my goal for you. So it's not so much what it costs. The question is, what is it worth to you? And if it's not, and if you feel like, no, Sam, it's really not that worth it. There's somebody who commented earlier, like, oh, I've heard all this before. There's nothing new for me here. Great, fine. If it's not for you, then don't take the class. Like, I don't want you there if it's not really going to be meaningful for you. And I understand the impulse too, that like some of it may sound a little like you've heard this before or a little too simple. But I guarantee you, once you get in there, and you guys are familiar enough with me and how I work, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. Or it's simple, but it's not that easy. Or it's easy, but it's not that simple. Something like that. Believe me, it'll set off some big gongs. There's some big bells ringing the minute you enroll. So here, I'm seeing this question about being a graphic designer. Where is this?
Yeah, Denise says, I feel kind of stuck on selling art. I have a lot of talent and I'm a trained artist, but I'm just getting back into it after too many years as a graphic designer. So I want to explore the work and do abstracts, but people would probably buy right now. I'm not hearing what the question in that is.
Right. So, and I have a couple of things about this. First of all, now I'm not a visual artist and I don't know that much about the professional world of visual art, but I never understood this thing of like graphic designers somehow aren't artists. I don't get that. Of course they're artists. You're using the exact same skills of artistry. It's color, shape, definition, and even more so because it's art with a purpose, right? It's art with a message. It's art with a call to action. It's art with it's trying to convey something very specific. So I think your years as a graphic designer will have made you an even better fine artist. And consequently, I think you can charge whatever you want to charge for your work. I mean, art brings us joy every minute of the day. There's no price on that. So I would price it, go deep in your heart on the pricing and really charge what feels really good to you. Like what would feel great. Like if I handed this over and I got a check for X amount, that would just feel great to me. And go with that. That's the price. And don't play this game of like, I don't think people will pay that, because people will pay that. They absolutely will. But they won't if you don't price it that way, right? You won't get what you don't ask for. And if you price it too cheap, then people who are just looking for cheap will find you and they're not going to appreciate it. They're not going to understand what they're getting. So you want to price it high enough so that people understand and appreciate what it is that they're getting. So I hope that helps. I wasn't exactly clear what the question was, but I understand the confusion around what do I charge. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing concern. Good. Anything else here? What are we getting?
I think we're good.
I think we're good too. Well, thank you all so much for being here, for sharing this time with me, and for being willing to go deep on some of these stories that you're telling yourself, because you can have what you want. You 100% can have what you want. And you can do it without being stressed out. You can do it without hurting people's feelings. You can do it while being true to your best and highest self. And that's what I want for you. So whether you do it with me in the Start Right Where You Are class, or you do it on your own time, or you do it with another teacher, I don't care. I mean, I care, but I want you to do it. That's what I care about. So let's do one more round of breathing just to close out this time. You ready? Let's inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And look who came to visit. He almost never misses a prayer. Everybody, it's Chester. Come on over, Chester. Look. It's the world's cutest kitty.
There's always time to look at a cat on the internet.
Always time for kitty videos on the internet.
Now, there's something when people say they don't have time.
Right?
There's always time to look at cats on the internet.
Exactly. Now, that's time well spent, but still. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I look forward to hearing your questions. I look forward to seeing you in the Start Right Where You Are class. Remember, if you're one of the first 50, you'll get in that special behind the scenes, Sam tells you everything call. And I hope that your work gets out there, because the world needs your work. Thanks, everybody.